what are the advantages and disadvantages of online teaching and learning classes? How is the education sector responding to COVID-19? And how will the COVID-19 pandemic alter the future of teaching and learning?
All right. These are three questions packed into one. So let me start with the first question, that is the advantage of, before I the second question I will answer first before getting into advantage and disadvantage of online teaching and learning. The way I look at it, I see this COVID has been very, brought in a lot of hardship and difficulties and to a lot of professions, and education sector is one of them, which is severely affected because it involves a lot of students and the young people, and it is space oriented, space and time oriented. That is the difference. The impact on education sector is much more than other sectors because it's space oriented. Because we are talking about space and time oriented. What do I mean by that? Because you need to have a bunch of students in a space that is your classroom, and the classes are structured from say 10 to or 9 to 5. So if you cannot have the students in one space at a particular time, and that is a traditional concept of the classroom, and that's been severely disrupted because because of the lockdown and the shutting down of schools. And I see this as an opportunity to actually, because we've been classroom, because we've been talking about a lot of education experts and then other education, the people who are working in the educators, and they've been talking so far, been talking for a long time about disrupting the classroom, flipping the classroom, and they talk of different languages and changing the way we teach students and changing and actually transforming the learning and teaching experience. But we're not being doing so. But other than just with a projector and with a PowerPoint presentation, nothing has changed in the last 10, 15 years. I don't see any changes at all. Whereas we have so much access, we can do so many things with the technology available. And if you look at in particular in this country, you don't allow technology in the campus, just to because I've come across engineering students who are not allowed to carry a mobile phone onto the campus. And actually, this can be an incredibly powerful learning tool, a teaching and learning tool, a mobile phone, but it's not allowed in the classroom. So I look at this as an opportunity to actually flip the classroom, to disrupt the traditional way of teaching and to reach out to more. Because the moment we break the idea of, the moment we dismantle the idea of a specific time and specific place. So if you want to teach something, if you want to educate somebody, they need to be in a specific place and at a specific time. Once you get over that notion, then I find this exciting. I find it super exciting because that expands the possibility, that expands the potential to reach out to more students and to engage with more people, to actually expand the boundaries of teaching and knowledge and sharing knowledge.
How communication vehicles such as interviews, podcasts, webinars, blogs, and social media are playing a key role in empowering the right scientific knowledge about COVID-19, sir?
So obviously, because of the pandemic, the standard way of communication has to change because of social distancing. And even for us, we can't go to the villages. If you have to go to the villages, there has to be social distancing. So how do you connect with them? So the communication means itself is changing. So one of the things that you are doing right now is an online Facebook live interview, and that could be one way. So webinars are becoming very popular. So webinars, in fact, just recently we had a 3-day webinar on one thematic topic on materials for energy harvesting, which is a very important theme. A 3-day webinar involving people from different countries, not just from India, and of course, many people from India. And the webinar was very successful. Hundreds of people joined at different times. The online communication gives a very different feeling because people don't have to travel. So very often there is a convenience. So I think we should utilize this, the online communication, more of online communication channel during the pandemic.
What is the most important thing in networking?
Yeah. The most important, you can say the point, or we can talk about what is important is time. because I have heard people, a lot of people say that, we don't have time, we are busy and all that. But then the thing is, then you should not attempt, or you should not go into the whole thinking that you want to do networking. One, it takes time, it takes the effort of understanding and be with people, because you have to have a nature, and that nature is important, because that nature is of helping each other. If you feel that you are a very good networker, and you understand that you want to take help from others, they also want to take help from you. So in this entire bargain, what is important is time, effort, mutual respect, ethics. It's not that somebody, what is the difference between a conversation and a dialogue and a network which is strong enough? Because the thing is, what is important is, somebody is telling you something, you go out and tell others. Is this the ethics? No. So why I'm saying that, in this entire perspective of bringing the ethics, the effort, the time, the patience, and that is whole thinking of this aspect of how we should bring that aspect as such. So the point which I'm talking about is that you should be mindful of the fact that this is the networking will basically take time, and it's not that you want to create network but don't want to invest in it. It's like friendship, but the friendship is still mutual. Network is basically very large. So from friends, you bring the network. From the network, you then go for a tribe, and that's will Shantanu will talk about the whole issue of how do you create a tribe on that. But I was completing my point before, was basically the level of comfort and level of thinking when you have when your seniors in college telling you that what do you need, and how it is important for you to really be in creating or thinking about it, that you have to maintain that is important. Lot of youth today, I can tell you, when they join college, maybe they don't know how to maintain that, and that should be our social skills, or you can say the soft skills, which we should talk about to our children and the youth of the world, to say how should you do. Because if you are very passive, then also there's a problem, and if you are too much extrovert, then there is a problem. You have to maintain that fine balance between the both. Yeah.
How will you measure ROI in influencer marketing, sir?
So ROI typically would rest on the response, which is probably what I just mentioned, would be the major factor, called engagement. Now, engagement is a matrix where you see how many people have liked that post, how many people have seen that post. There is something called impressions. So impressions is how many times has the post been served to various people. Then there is something called reach. How many accounts, how many unique accounts has the post reached to? So that's another thing. Then even if people have seen, are they liking the product? Are they talking about the product? Or they're just talking about the celebrity? Suppose I, as an influencer, use a product, maybe a health drink. But are people talking about me having a health drink, or they're talking about the health drink as such? So you have to make the content in such a way that your conversation is around the product or the service and not about the person. Though it becomes very difficult when it's a big celebrity, more people will end up talking about the celebrity. Oh, you're looking cool. Oh, you're looking smart. Oh, that's a very nice glass. Oh, that's a very nice container. So in order to drive the conversation around the brand or the product or the service, you have to be really very, very careful when you devise the content. So the first and foremost thing is your engagement. How much of an engagement the particular post or the video, whatever you have put out there for your followers, that is driving. Then second thing is the revenue. If you are generating revenues, I think that is very, very clear. But then as of now, more of brand building is being done by the brands than the sales. Eventually, a time will come when the sales will be tied to the influencer, that, okay, we are giving you this product, we are paying you X amount of money, and this is the ROI, or return on investment, that we expect. Now, some people may have a great engagement, but that may not convert into sales or revenues. But at the other hand, some people may have lesser engagement, but a bigger ROI. Now, that all depends on how good the product or service is appearing in that post or in that photo or that video. So, there can always be a shopping link, or there can be, for example, in Instagram, a swipe up link. So, when you swipe up, it takes you to the web page, it lands you there where you can shop the product. Or now, even in Instagram, you have shopping tabs. So, you can tap the product and it will take you straight to that product purchase page. So, these are all the things with which you can measure the ROI. And at the end of the exercise, you always sit and see, okay, this is the money that we paid, this is the number of people we have reached to. Because ROI may not necessarily be the revenue or the money, it can also be the number of accounts reached, because eventually you are also making your product or service popular and people will buy when they need. It's not that you have shown a product. Some people may be impulsive buying related products, that you show the product and people say, oh wow, this is a nice thing. So for example, a phone, a new phone or a new watch. So gadgets in particular, people buy impulsively. But there are some things which people need in their life. So if that product is not needed at that point in time, but they will have a recall value if they had seen that ad or that post. So it's not necessarily the money, it's also the accounts reached or the awareness generated that is a part of the ROI.
What lessons should we learn from this pandemic?
I think the first lesson, because not many of us realize, we have been all very, especially those of us who are dealing with medicine, those of us who are in epidemiology, we've been looking at medicine, we've been looking at lots of people in critical care units, we've been looking at those numbers flashing across television screen, those complex graphs that we try to make sense of when we review the progress of COVID through the night. All that is there. But honestly speaking, what is very fundamental to all of us is the first lesson that this gives us is that do not mess with with the world ecology. Do not mess around with nature, right? So I'll just tell you a little story. And little story is that when we were little, and the parents gave you a big thrashing and said, "Look, you've done the same thing again. You refuse to learn. You are making the same mistake over and over again." And this is what the world is telling us today. If you just recall what happened in the swine flu, we think this is very unique. No, it is not very unique. We are making the same mistake over and over again and putting almost the whole humanity at risk. Look at the Spanish flu of 1918, 1917, 1918. Why did that start? Because of the artificially bad, horrible living conditions during the last phase of the First World War, when people were living in swamps. There were soldiers, there were people in rotting villages who got infected from animals, the pigs. So the swine flu was otherwise known as Spanish flu. That happened once. Secondly, that was 1920. So in 1920, we said, look, 5 crores people died when the population of the world was about 100 little more than India's population now, around 180 crores. So 5 crores out of 180 crores people died at that time. Then we thought, we brushed it aside. Some people survived. We then went into technological progress, traveling, globalization, industrialization. Absolutely fine. Urbanization, great cities, great nightlife. The social norms and whatever little social discipline we had broken down. And that brought us to the middle of another epidemic. That was a lifestyle-related epidemic. And that was HIV/AIDS. That was in 1980s. We were young doctors in England at that stage, and I remember how horrible it was, the HIV epidemic. We as young doctors were pushed to the front to deal with all these HIV patients. There was no vaccine, no drug, nothing. It took about 10, 15 years before the first drug came out. And now we thought that, look, we've got some handle on this problem. When was that? That was not very long back. That was 1980, 1985. AZT came on in early 1990s. It's not even been 20, 25 years. And in 20, 25 years, we forgot all the lessons of the past, and we started messing around with, people in the wet markets, interfering with the animals, torturing them, trying to make esoteric food of the bat and the pangolin and God knows what. Because as human beings, it is like respecting your neighbor. So I have to respect myself. I have to respect my ecological neighbor. So I think this is the biggest lesson, that we are becoming like errant children. We are refusing to learn from the lesson, and the nature is teaching us this lesson probably every 10, 15, 20 years. And with each lesson, I think we are also eroding. So I don't think nature will give us many more chances to self-correct. So this is the biggest lesson of Corona in 2020, COVID-19.
Life is considered to be a race, but even during this time of pandemic distress, people can attain a good lifestyle. How would you recommend? How would you recommend on living a simple life? What do you have to say on that?
So in this kind of situation, I know we are stuck at home. I mean, I personally am stuck at home since the last 6 months. The last time I went out anywhere was in March. So to be very positive in this situation is challenging by itself. But then what helps is to actually take this time, which we usually don't have, and to think through and have reflect on your habits and see where you can develop a good habit and maybe get rid of a bad habit. And in this process also, maybe what I have learned is to be a little frugal, because we all know how the economic situation is currently, and to have a good lifestyle you have to have a good understanding of the expenditure that you incur. That's what I
Rudrita, your take.
So my point is something different, not totally different from Priyanjana, but a bit of different. Like what I feel like is this situation is worst. I totally agree with that. But there are so many things which we can positively accept that, and which we can there are so many things in Indian culture which we can actually adapt, and we can work with that. And this is the high time when we actually can produce that thing, and we actually can work on that. Like if we see Ayurveda, this is a thing which we forgot about that, and we have started taking so many Western things into our lives, and we are working on that. We are having a certain food habits. We are reading something in internet and implementing into our life. But if we see ancient India, there are so many things which right now we need into our lives, like which right now we have to implement our life to uplift our, not only like our social status or something like that, which actually implement our mindset and our soul. And I think this brings a lot of positivity into our lives, and we right now we need that. I guess this is the most important thing which can motivate ourselves right now.
Which foods would Foodka recommend the audience to have during this pandemic?
शायद तो निशांति का फर्स्टली मुझे ना फुटेज खाने में बड़ा सही लगता है. पहले बात तो है आप भर के फुटेज खाओ, क्या होगा ना दिल खुश हो जाएगा उसमें. दूसरी बात, आई एम अ हार्डकोर नॉन वेज. इफ यू फॉलो फूडका यू मस्ट हैव नोटिस, एंड बिरयानी इज समथिंग आई लव. I would ask everyone to have biryanis. I would ask everyone basically to go out. कहते हैं ना, आप रुचि खाना पर रुचि पढ़ना. आपको जो खाने का मन करे आप आराम से खाइए, बस बाहर जाके खाइए. Live a normal life, because this pandemic is going to stay here for a long period of time, and we can't hold back. Business can't hold back. आपको जो खाना है, जैसे खाना है, एक बढ़िया सा जगह ढूंढिए. फूड का एपिसोड में काफी सारा जगह हम लोगों ने कवर किया है. वो लोग कैसे कर रहे हैं, हाउ दे आर मैनेजिंग द हाइजीन, हाउ इज द फूड. देखिए, खाइए.
As a food blogger and a food blogger, what do you think the future holds for food blogging?
लेट्स से आप सुबह न्यूज़पेपर पढ़ते हो. अच्छा, आप नहीं भी पढ़ते होगा, आपके घर में तो आता ही होगा कोई ना कोई, एक इंग्लिश, हिंदी, बंगाली, जो भी हो, आता तो होगा. So blogging is like a newspaper. That old-fashioned blogging I'm talking about, that website something.com or something wordpress.com, something of that sort. That is more of a newspaper. It builds your portfolio. And if you have the knowledge, if you're interested, that's your own domain. For example, vlogging is very good. People are looking towards visual content. But say tomorrow YouTube decides to shut down. Then what? Nobody knows. Nobody thought Orkut would shut down. Nobody thought TikTok would be banned. Nobody thought Google Plus will be shut down. So blogging is something which is old-fashioned, but it will be there. And as long as you are paying for the hosting and domain, it's there for you. Vlogging is the need of the hour. People are looking for visual content, whether it's Instagram Reels, whether it's a Facebook short video, whether it's Instagram, YouTube. Definitely YouTube, because we have a decent large family out there on YouTube subscribers. That's here to stay, but I prefer it should be a balance between blogging and vlogging.
Yes. I would like to ask, fitness just isn't about physical state of health or being healthy, but people
Right.
say it's mentally as well. So I would
Right.
like to understand your take and a few tips to people. How should they strengthen their mental health being?
Well, fitness plays a huge role on mental wellness. I'll give you an example. Let's say that you're suffering from some kind of depression, and we all do from time to time. If you start working out, your exercise will cure 90% of your depression. उल्टा ऐसे होता है, जब हम वर्कआउट नहीं करते तभी वो डिप्रेशन लेवल्स और बढ़ने की चांसेस होती है. So when you're working out, I will talk in layman's terms, I will not talk very technical, but when you're working out, your body, your mind, your brain releases happy hormones. They release endorphins, which keep you happy throughout the day. Now, this works better if you lead a very healthy sleeping pattern as well. Okay, you know, जैसे हमारे बुजुर्गों ने कहा है कि आप जल्दी से रात में सो जाओ और जल्दी सवेरे आने से पहले आप उठ जाओ, सन आने से पहले उठ जाओ. So same way, like I sleep in the night at 9:30, 10, I wake up at 4:35 in the morning. अभी इससे क्या होता है? When you wake up in the morning and first thing you exercise, you set the tone for the entire day. First of all, your body metabolism is at its peak. So instead of getting up in the morning and making it more lazy, you start exercising. And then there's a good chance by evening your body will feel tired. Obviously, if you've been up from 5, 6 in the morning, you've exercised, you've gone to office, you've taken care of your responsibilities, whatever stresses you have throughout the day, exercise will help you balance that. It will give you that mental focus, and focus is very essential even in the field of business. Without focus, if your mind is all over the place and your mind is clogged or cluttered, you cannot think straight. Exercise helps you release all those, emotions, you could say. For me, exercise is very emotional as well. So if I'm going through any kind of problems in my life, I train 1 hour extra. A lot of people will sit with a bottle of alcohol and they'll enjoy their night. But for me, it's the other way around. For me, my happiness comes from exercise. And just not me, people who have been exercising regularly, you will always see that their mental balance is at a very higher level than people who don't exercise. So definitely exercising is not only for the body. I would say it is 60-70% for the mind as well. Very essential.
As I said earlier, exercising, you're feeling more energetic, feeling more positive about yourself. So, it reduces stress in your life, it reduces your depression, and it boosts up your mood. So you feel, good about everything around you. So I think it's very important for exercising regularly. And so your healthy body leads to your healthy mind, and your healthy mind leads to happy. If you want to live a happy life, make sure you're exercising.
Some golden words from you as a doctor, not just about pacemaker therapy, whatever you wanted to say. And secondly, your message for Turiya Talks and Turiya Communications. And then I think we can wrap up the show.
Great. So as a doctor, I think healthcare has gone through a lot last one year maybe. And especially intensivists and those who are working critical care, they have been pushed to their wall. And it was a very tough time. So my message is whichever way they can contribute in spreading the infection, spreading the disease, I think they should be doing that, and they should be more careful, and discipline has to be there. Second, if a person gets a cardiac disease, there is no need of getting panicky. We have advanced technology treatment available in India, every nook and corner of India, because of various schemes, Swasthya scheme, Ayushman Bharat scheme, and every person is entitled to he has a right to be treated, and fortunately the facilities are getting available. So things are very optimistic, right? What I see right now. And second, I have worked with Sandhya, and her passion and kind of her positive energy, I think it is going to drive the institution and the entire project. And I have heard about I've heard your previous episodes, and it was really fantastic. So what only thing is, I wish you all luck, and you are you're going into various new forms of Theoria Talks. So good wishes, and all the best.